is in keeping with our true fairness doctrine and total objectivity personified policy here. We got that policy, Perspectives United. What do you mean? That's all. That sounds good. All that stuff. Well, listen. For those of you who are just about to tune your dial there, look out, friend. I have electrified every dial in the town. You're liable to get your thing blown right off. So just relax there. Just relax now. It's true. I ain't John Gambling or other, big talents like that. But after all, it's late at night, and well, you know what we say around here. We just say, well, what the hell? That's what we say. So, all right, bring it up there, Big Herb. Oh, yes. What I was going to say is that I'm going to have an exceedingly, in fact, an almost excruciatingly exciting program tonight. So thrilling. And you just hang around there and stand at one foot and then on the other foot. And then when you really have to, well, we'll excuse you for a couple of minutes. But bring it up there. Yeah, that's right. Oh, hello there, fellow victims. Listen, now the reason that I didn't say anything about the Mets last night, if you listen to the program last night, was because I was at Shea Stadium. Yep, I was at Shea Stadium. And you talk about a thrilling odyssey. I felt like, one of these, these people take thrilling odysseys, I was all the way out in Cincinnati, appearing on a TV show out there. They have TV out there, It's very exciting out there. They have these wind-driven transmitters and stuff. And, water-cooled tubes and everything. And I was, And in fact, there's a rumor out there in Cincinnati that they've perfected color. And they may have color. And there was a big fight. There was, in the control, in the big fist fight, somebody said that they got a thing called a coaxial cable now. Yeah, and you know that there are some places so far out in the boondocks that they're still getting Jerry Lester and Dagmar. And it's a new big show. But anyway, I was out there in Cincinnati, see, and very exciting. And I flew back. I took the next plane back. In fact, that's the best thing to do when you're in Cincinnati. I took the next plane back to get to Shea Stadium, and I jumped out of it because I had a ticket. See, this friend of mine, he had this ticket, and he couldn't use it. He used one. He had two tickets. He had one for himself and one for this guy that he just killed. So he had an extra ticket. So I was very excited. He called me, says, "You want to see the last game out here?" And I said, "Yeah, that's right, Danny. In case you're interested in who it was, old Danny over at Manny's Music, see, and he and I were old buddies, and we sit around and we tie broken guitar strings together there many times in the evening. He sells them, so I got off the plane. Now this is the whole point of the story. I came rushing out, and of course the usual hassle at LaGuardia with the cabs. Today the cabbies are getting to the point now where you have to go where the cabbie wants to go. Now, that's right. Oh, you don't tell a cabbie where you're going because he gets bugged. You go where he wants to go. So you holler, "Hey, where are you going?" He says, "I'm going down to 23rd and Park. There's a cafeteria there." You say, "Okay." I mean, of course, then you have to walk 328 blocks to where you're going, get mugged 6 times between where he lets you off and where you're going. But anyway, so 9 different cabs and I had a fight when I told them I wanted to go to Shea Stadium for LaGuardia. See, they kept saying, "Oh, you can't get there from here." What do you mean? You're out of your bird. I could see it, When you're at Shea Stadium, when you're at LaGuardia, you can see the field right over. They kept saying, "Yeah, you can't get here, you slop from here. What do you think this is? It's an airport. This is a $28 trip. That's all I'm here for." Well, so finally, I pulled a bad thing on a guy. See, he after I was turned down by 4 cabs, turned down flat. It was so embarrassing, I hate to flunk an audition with a cab. I mean, I don't mind flunking giant auditions, but when you start flunking auditions with cabs, it's bad. Little skinny ladies were getting in, so finally, this guy pulls up, see, cab. So I've been first in line now, for 8 different turns, and they wouldn't take me. So finally, the guy comes up, and he drives up, and he says, "Where you going, Mac?" I says, "I am going to Westchester." Oh, he sees a big fatty there, Oh, wow, there's a, $100 tip, see. And I looked, I was wearing my new sport coat. the one I got 4 years ago at Robert Hall's, and it's a real groovy one. It's got these tinfoil sleeves, and it shines in the dark, and it looks very groovy. So, yeah, it lights up too. It's got these shoulder pads, and so I looked like ready money. The old man says it looked like ready money. So he pulls up here. Where you going? I said, Westchester. He said, oh, get in. I jump in the cab, starts putting in gear, and then I said, oh no, yeah, I forgot. I got to get to Shea Stadium. You could see his neck get red. I euchred him. Well, hooray, Shepherd 1-1. So, oh yeah, you could just see this guy. See, he's, what do you mean, Shea Stadium? You can't get there from here. I said, let me drive. I'll take you. I said, I can see it right over there. I know how to get there. Well, after, a lot of yelling and hollering, we finally got to Shea Stadium, and it's now about, 15 minutes into the game. And Shepherd goes into this, the stadium there, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was electric. You could just feel the atmosphere. It's like a giant, a beehive about to explode. See? Well, already the score, I missed the whole big first inning, so already the score was 5-0. But that didn't matter, you see. You could just feel it building up. Every time some guy'd hit a foul tip, you'd hear, the crowd, I've been to many a World Series, but this was something else, see. So I am sitting right directly, and this is stuff you're going to hear tonight you have not heard about the big night. I am sitting right on the field. This friend of mine has this field box. In fact, this is the only true Met I know. I don't know who these dildocks were that won the big Met contest. Half of these people probably discovered the Mets, about the time that the World's Fair started, and they were already in Shea. But Danny has seen every night game since the Mets began in 1962, and he has seen every day game that he can get. He only has 2 days off a week, see. He sees every one. He never misses. He's seen every one. So all right, here's Danny here. At the moment of fantastic truth. And it's like, it must have been like Columbus discovering America or something. For years he's been figuring he's going to fall off the end of the earth. And now here he is. He's pulling up. What does he see? Miami Beach. And he can't believe it. So, Eddie Fisher's playing there at the Fontainebleau. So, I'm not going to get into the whole cream cheese and lox scene here right now, but nevertheless, Danny is sitting right on the field. Now, I'm sitting right next to Danny. We're right on the field, and we are between, get this, we are between the St. Louis Cardinal dugout and the backstop, which is behind home plate. I'll tell you, we had a better view of that game than half of the hitters. In fact, I'll tell you, some of those hitters didn't have any view of the game, the way they were swinging. So I'm sitting right there, right on the field, see. And I look back up behind me. And, of course, as you know, out at Shea Stadium, most of the people really are not interested in baseball. Most of them are interested in TV. And, they're all, this is a total TV crowd. In fact, I kept wondering what they're looking at, see. And here's a big ball game going on. And it turns out they keep, they pick up the cameras. So the entire crowd, this is a total clutch crowd out there. See, they're all, hey, Manny, I want television, hey, Manny. And they're yelling and hollering, all standing on the seats, waving things and all that. And I can hear Lindsey Nelson up there blatting away, see. And the ball game is continuing on. And, of course, I'm in the middle of this clutch crowd that's sitting down here. So this is not a baseball crowd. They don't know much about baseball. They really don't. But they know a lot about Eddie Kranepool and Ron Swoboda and how to make signs. This is their specialty. So anyway, the thing is building up. It's and I'm watching the cards. Now this is the great drama. I wonder why TV sports announcers in general. I'm telling you, as a guy who used to do play-by-play, why they are so unimaginative today. The typical comment is, say, Frank, do you agree that Mickey Mantle was a great credit to the game? Why, yes, Phil, that's true. I believe that Mickey Mantle is an inspiration to the youth of America. Well, that's what I say, Frank. And do you agree that if his legs had been a little bit better, he would have been one of the all-time greats? Well, Phil, I believe he is one of the... This is typical commentary, as he goes on like that. And it's good for the youth of America. Well, I'm sitting right down on the field. Now, maybe you don't know, if you're a non-baseball type, maybe you don't know some of the real drama. The real drama was not the Mets last night. It was the Cardinals. You must realize that the Cardinals were picked universally by everybody in the country to run away with their division. Universally, friends. And they ain't running away with no division. They ain't running away with nothing. And here they are. And I'm sitting right next to him. And here's Joe Torre, who is from Brooklyn. Joe Torre looks more like a ball player than a ball player has a right to look. Oh, he's got that square jaw, bronzed. He's got a pair of shoulders on him, believe me, that make the average bull look like a gerbil. He is, he's a real, oh, yeah. And Joe is in the on-deck circle right ahead of us. And he's just looking out there, and he's got a battered helmet, that St. Louis helmet, all battered, and you can see it's all kicked and been scratched and all. It's been a long season, and you could see his uniform is all kind of, what the heck is that noise? What's going on up there? Is Gambling doing his tap dance again at this hour? There it goes. So anyway, all the years I've been using the studio and everything like that. Friends, if this building is falling down, you're going to get a play-by-play that won't stop. But so stay tuned. But nevertheless, I'm watching Lou Brock. Now, Lou Brock is a whippet of a man. Lou Brock is one of the most. He looks like a whippet. He's got these sharp. He's got a wasp waist, and he's got these two kind of steel-like eyes, and he looks like a razor blade, and he has his hat pulled down low. Brock, you see, he's up the plate, and Gentry is pitching. And this crowd, every pitch, wow, wow. And then I see a head come out, just stick out of the dugout a little bit and look around. And it's this bland face, absolutely expressionless. Who is it? Bob Gibson, one of the great pitchers of the modern era. And a couple of minutes later, I see Red Schoendienst, the manager, who was one of the great second basemen, by the way, of probably the last 30 or 40 years, and a fine manager. And Red Schoendienst comes out of the dugout, and he picks up something and walks back in. His face is totally expressionless. Not one single, you couldn't tell, there was no excitement, no happiness, no anger, nothing. They were like, have you ever gone to a reptile house and walked around and looked at the snakes? There's no expression. Well, that's the way the Cardinals were. And they were getting, it was like the last nail was being driven into the coffin of the 1969 season. And a lot of the Cardinals ain't going to be back to the Cardinals next year. And you know why? Very high-priced ball players. And it's pretty hard to keep up that kind of a payroll when you're not winning the pennant, see? So here's Dal Maxwell, see? Another man, another razor-like player. He's very, very sharp. Willowy is the word that Kurt Gowdy always uses. He calls him lean. He's willowy, actually. And Dal Maxwell comes out, and he gets in the on-deck circle. He just looks around the crowd a little bit, just vaguely, just looks. And I'm looking right at his face. I'm 15 feet away, see? No expression whatsoever. And he picks up the pine tar rag, see? A little bit on the hand. He wipes the bat. And the crowd, wow, wow. And they're carrying big signs. And everybody thinks that the drama was the Chicago Cubs, because they all had signs about the Cubs out there. The Cubs! Here was the real drama. The Cards. And so Maxwell, I think he got a short, sharp single into center field of one of the 3 or 4 hits that they got. And he's standing on first. I believe it was Maxwell. He's on first, and he's just looking down over Gentry. The crowd is roaring. And I'm sitting there watching this ball team. It's great hopes, and it's fantastic. Remember the reputation of the Cardinals. Well, it was like a dynasty. Everybody says, why, there's not even going to be a race in this division. It's going to be the Cards. The whole argument was whether it was going to be the Giants or the Atlanta Braves and the other division. Nobody worried about this one. And now they're going down to the Mets. The Mets. Well, inning after inning after inning went by. And then it was obvious. You see, the Mets were playing so high. They were so high that it was ridiculous. I mean, it really was. The Mets were really high. Now I've played a lot of ball myself, and you get the feeling of a high ball club. Now, a high ball club is a club. You know how sometimes in your life You have days when you're really on top of it. I mean, everything goes, man, and you're with it. Well, these guys were hiring down into the Mets bullpen, or rather the Mets dugout, right, which you could see right directly across. You know, they're all walking back and forth, and Yogi Berra kept standing up and taking his hat between innings. He just stands up all the time and stretches, and I kept thinking, Yogi Berra, the last man in New York to manage a World Series ball club. Yogi Berra is now an unsung coach on the Mets. You know, this guy in his day could have taken the entire Mets ball club on single-handed, you know, all by himself. And so he gets up, he takes his hat off, see, and he just keeps rubbing it back, just keeps rubbing his hair back, and then he'd put his hat back on. He'd stand there and look. And all the rest of the Mets, for the most part, were sitting down, except one guy, one of the pitchers. I don't recall which one it was. I think it might have been Koosman, was sitting up on the parapet just watching. Once in a while, he'd feel the ground ball. A foul tip would come back. And then somebody fouled one into the, what a fantastic hard shot, into the St. Louis dugout. It just a wow, pow, you know, went in there, and it hit the back, and four of the Cardinals just went flat down, you see. And Red Shaindeist, who was an old second baseman, he reacted instantly. His hand just went up, and he caught it on the rebound. Face expressionless. He just caught it on the rebound, just like a great catch in the dugout, by the way. He caught it on the rebound, off the back of the dugout, and he just flipped the ball out. Didn't look. And the Cardinals were going down. But then it happened. The last inning. And, of course, it was a run around first. Somebody hit a ground ball, and it was a double play. And instantaneously, it was just like an enormous tidal wave. Remember, we were sitting down on the ground. We were on the ground seats, and all these people were up ahead, up behind us, like a tremendous banked, like a wall of people. And, of course, standing room only up there. And down as inning went by, inning after inning, and finally the ushers had given up completely. Nobody was being kicked out of the aisles or anything. Until now, it's a solid, packed wall. They didn't even have aisles going down into the box seats. They were just packed. And the instant that last out, give me that thing here, boy. The instant you saw that ball hit into Kranepool's glove, yeah, it was Kranepool on first. He whipped that ball backhand, and then, pow! They came charging down. It was just, we were laying flat, and guys were laying on the ground. People were running over them, and they were screaming. Now, you didn't see that on television. I'm sure you didn't. There must have been a dozen people got busted ribs right in that first row of boxes. That great crowd of people came running, and they were running on the tops of other people. They were running over them and charging, just flying out into the field. And I saw the pitcher, Gentry. Gentry came running off the mound. Of course, the Mets came tearing out of the dugout, and they surrounded him. And instantly, this tremendous crowd of people went around him. And of course, somebody hollered, "Hurry up! Get to the dugout, quick!" And they went running for the dugout because they would never have made it. See, they went running for the dugout like mad. And you saw these ball players. They were running like halfbacks and like Tucker Fredericks, let's say. And kids were flying. One guy went right over the top of another guy's back with the spikes, you know. And they were charging him. And of course, it was total bedlam. You probably saw that on TV. And what you didn't see, of course, was what always happens in a New York crowd. Immediately after the big celebration really got going, then the vandalism started. People, busting the seats down, other people caving in the dugout. Did you know they caved in the dugout? And one kid fell off the top of the scoreboard, which must be 5-6 stories high. Yeah, there were ambulances all over the place. And you could hear horns for miles around. The Mets had won it. At least they'd won their division. And there it was. And I sat there, and Danny sat there, and we watched this whole scene. Two old, real Met fans. And it hit me. And Danny was there, too. We had both been to the first game that the Mets ever played, back in the Polo Grounds. And, I have a few observations to make about the Mets, and I will unload them. They are not going to be popular, some of them, but they'll be true. First of all, the Mets are not losers and never have been. The Mets, even though you hear all this stuff by Larry Merchant and all that, the losers, they're not. The Mets have never been losers. Losers are guys that nobody cheers. Losers are guys that nobody loves. The Mets have been clowns, yes, and they've lost ball games, many, but they've never been losers. You see, New York doesn't really know real losers, and it quickly forgets them, genuine losers. For example, if you want to know real losers, do you know that they have not won a pennant in Washington, the Washington Senators, since sometime around the mid-40s? This is 1969, friends. And people keep thinking that 7 years is a long time to go without winning the Mets a pennant or something. Good Lord. The Chicago Cubs won their last one in 1946, I believe. And there are other teams that have not won them since maybe around the 30s. The Chicago White Sox went from 1919 to 1959. Figure it out, friends, if you think you know losers. And the thing about it is nobody cares. That's a true loser. When you're losing in front of 228 lackadaisical people, you're a loser. The Mets never had that. And another thing maybe a lot of you don't know or think about when you talk about the Mets. The Mets are one of the richest ball teams in the big leagues. I mean, financially. This is a very wealthy ball club. And they have a beautiful stadium to play in. And they draw tremendous crowds. They make a lot of money. They can buy a lot of good ball players, and they've done it. And that's fine. But to call the Mets losers is not to understand what a loser is. Now, if you'd like to know about losers, friends, real losers, I would suggest you pick up the current copy of Sports Illustrated. There's a beautiful story in there, one of the best things I've ever read about professional athletics. I would suggest you pick up this copy, and it's about the Titans. And it was written by one of the players on the Titans, and the Titans, of course, were the Jets, and they were playing in the American Football League. They were playing to so few crowds that their paychecks bounced. They had no money. They were ad-libbing their plays in the huddle. They went for weeks with nothing but rubber checks in their pockets. They even had to ration in the dressing room tape. And the trainer would come out and he would give out tape only to guys who could prove they had an actual sprain, not guys that just wanted to brace a wrist. No. That's how far down they were. And they remember the one game when they came charging out of the dressing room, and they were all up, and they were playing, incidentally, that day, the San Diego Chargers. We all know the San Diego Chargers. They were in their dressing room getting ready for the game, and they were all suited up. And by the way, they would not issue them clean socks. That's a loser. The only time they got clean socks was only during an actual game. And they were not allowed clean socks for practice periods at all. And so this is the Titans. This is real. And now these guys are playing professionally in the Polo Grounds. Remember, this is big time football. And so the day came, they were playing the Chargers, and they came rushing out of the dugout or the dressing room. And they ran out and they started to run through practice plays. And the guy who was writing, Alec Karras, by the way, fine ball player, played on the team. He turns, he said, "What's the matter? It's looking funny. It just felt funny." And one of the ball players says, "Yeah, take a look at the stands." And he looked around, and all that were in the stands were the vendors. The vendors, every 10 yards was a vendor standing all by himself. And they played the ball game to no customers. And they went out in the middle of the first period, and they got all the kids in the neighborhood and gave them free tickets and brought them in so they could have sound. Now you're hearing what a real loser's like. But nevertheless, this is a great piece. Now, as a Met fan, though, of course it's fantastic. I'm delighted that the Mets are there. But, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the Mets. I don't think the Mets are losers. I don't think they were. They were lovable clowns, but that isn't a loser. And now I think today the Yankees really are losers, because you notice the sports writers make snide remarks about them, and people don't go out and all. They become losers, real losers. The Mets were always lovable Casey or lovable Marv or old Rod, and I think they're exciting, and I always love to see a good ball team, and this is a good ball team. I think you're seeing the beginning of a dynasty. This is not a fluke. The Mets are a good ball club, and it's not so much of a miracle, really. They're a great ball club now. Not great, they're a good ball club. They're not a great ball club, but they're a good ball club. You know, talking about the Titans, if you want to hear a really sad story, the ball club one time went out. They were all set to go to the polo grounds, to play their game, and they got on the bus, and they're all sitting there in the bus, and the bus driver wouldn't drive them because he hadn't been paid. The big league ball club, and none of the ball players had any money, and so one of the guys, they got pretty bugged, and so one of them went into the hotel, and the hotel wouldn't cash any checks for them at all. And so they took up a collection to get the nickels and the dimes together that the ball players had and gave it to the bus driver. He says, "Okay, take us to the game now." And he drove them out. And I thought, oh, boy, if that isn't professional athletes. And then another little sad incident was Harry Wismer, who I knew vaguely. He used to be here at WR, owned the ball club at the time. And finally, after it was obvious it was just not going to happen, the ball club was really in trouble, Wismer came in and into the bus, and they hadn't been paid for weeks. They had no clean socks and no tape and the whole thing. He said to the boys, he says, "I want you guys to go out and win this one for my wife. It's her birthday today." And there was absolute silence in the bus. And without a word, he turned and left. He says they never saw him again. What a dramatic... really, now this is a loser. If you think the Mets are losers, friends, this is a loser. By the way, speaking of the Mets, let's get back on the Mets. They're the story today. And that was a wild-eyed. I want to see how many genuine Met fans there are out there. Who hit the first home run ever hit by a Met in an actual National League ball game, not the training or anything. The first official home run ever hit by a Met. Who hit it? Come on, give me a call here. We'll award you a brass fig key with bronze oak leaf palm if you can tell me who hit it. And because I was out at that ball game, and I'll give you 7 of them, man, if you can do this. What Met got the first hit that any Met ever got? The first actual hit. Who was it? And is this guy right? This guy's calling in? Come on, just give us the name. Don't get in the palaver there. All right, who was it? Was he at that game? Was he at the game? No, he wasn't at the game. He probably is just a historian type. I want to hear a guy who was at the game, because that was a wild day, too, the day that the Mets played their first game. By the way, they lost. Wait a minute, did they? Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, they lost the first game. But they lost it honorably. Now, I'll ask you another question. Who was the pitcher who threw the first pitch in anger for the Mets? In other words, the first official pitch that was ever thrown by a Met in a ball game. It's a good question. We're really producing them here. And that's not that long ago, And in fact, I'll give you a clue. The guy that hit the first home run for the Mets is still connected with the Mets. Very much so. Indeed-imo. But have you noticed that hardly anybody knows? Just one guy called in, and he knew who hit the first home run for the New York Mets, who it was. And I'll even give you even a further clue. You probably, if you watched it on television, if you watched the Mets ball game last night on television, you saw him. So he's not working in the front office. And a lot of people don't know that he did this, but he did. And I don't know whatever happened to the guy that hit the first, but he was a fine ball player, the guy that hit the first hit. And they had some great ball players on the Mets of the early days. People keep talking about Marv Throneberry, but there were a lot of true greats. Well, let's put it this way, near greats who played for the Mets, who were at the end of their career, but nevertheless are authentic Mets. Among them, Frank Thomas. Among them, Richie Ashburn. Richie Ashburn, of course, was one of the best outfielders in modern times. And he still is one of the few Mets that ever hit over 300 in a regular season. For the Mets, he did. And Richie was out there. There were a lot of good ball players. But now, speaking of losers, Herb Squires, our engineer. He's got a great record. Now I want you to listen to this. Now, if you want to hear, you can put loser. You can put the whole feeling of a loser into music far more than you can in the words, because most people think a loser's a guy that lost the game. Oh no. You know, losers are people nobody loves when they lose. In fact, losers are people that often people yell at when they lose, if they even know about it at all. That's the worst part of it. Is to lose and nobody cares. Nobody went to the game. A great loser, for example, is Mayor Daley of Chicago. There's a loser. In a crazy way he is. And we got a couple of candidates running here in New York that are losers. I mean, you can just see it, It's just in the face. But nevertheless, would you please, Herb? Now listen carefully, friends.
Oh, no. Hiram, you're not going to sing now, are you?
Sure, Herb, I'll sing my song. Pushing a broom. I spend my life pushing a broom. Waste my life away pushing a broom. Pushing a broom all the day.
Now I've heard everything.
Pushing them up. I spend my life pushing them up. Mopping up the slop, pushing them up. Pushing them up all night.
Hiram, you're not going to dance now, are you?
Sure. You know, Herb, once I was on the original amateur hour.
You were? Did you win anything, Hiram?
Oh, not exactly. See, I ran into a little trouble. I called Ted Knockoff the Godfrey.
Oh, I see.
Dusting around. Dust my life away, dusting around. Push away the dirt, dusting around. Dusting around all night.
Say, Hiram, how come you're dancing with that broom?
Well, it reminds me of my wife.
She isn't that skinny, is she?
I don't know, but every time she sneezes, she blows her dress off.
You really don't mean that, Hiram, do you?
Well, sure. She's got a perfect 36 figure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 12, 12, 12.
Oh, I see. Well, is she pretty?
Oop.
Is she attractive?
Oop.
Well, then she can't be ugly, can she?
Ugly? Why, every time she walks the room, the mice stand on chairs.
Oh, no, Hiram. Get back and dance for a while. And sing your song.
Oh, that's what I can do. 1, 2, 3, 4, let's go. Pushing a broom. Yes, sir. I spend my life pushing a broom. Wish my life away pushing a broom. Pushing a broom all day. Cha-cha-cha. Whoopee!
Oh, man. That was Herbie. By the way, that was Herb Squires on both voices, too. And it ain't easy. He'd know about losing, I'll tell you. From the heart. But, it's fascinating. Of course, a lot of people listening probably, I don't care about the Mets. What's this baseball? Well, I think the sports are far more basic to man than man ever knows that it is. In fact, that they found that practically every tribe, I'm talking about even the most primitive tribes, play competitive games. We all know about the American Indians, of course, and the Incas, the Aztecs, even the earliest Egyptians played games of one kind or another. So games have to be a very basic part of our life. It just has to be. And watching that scene last night, now all the times and years and places that I've seen ball games, I've never felt a peculiar sense of release, and the whole business just sort of coalesced in the one fantastic moment last night at Shea Stadium. Whether or not you were a Met fan, you were really observing a fascinating human phenomena, and if you didn't care to look at it, you missed something. You really did. I'm amazed at the number of people who really miss so much of the point of life. They'll go and watch some sad little play somewhere on Broadway that's about as lifeless as last week's canned salmon, and believe that they're really experiencing something important. This is an important. Oh yes, they'll defend it down, or they'll look at some poor sad Swedish movie that you know, if it hadn't gotten a good review from some guy in the Village Voice, would have died as the way it should have died years ago, and think that they're really seeing something important. And out there last night, watching this moment, I was far more interested in the crowd and the whole scene and the Cardinals going down. Now, these are real men, you know. These are not figures of fiction. These are real guys who have seen, now, again, looking at the Cardinals, who have seen their entire year go down the drain. And, I mean, there must have been a lot of hopes there. In fact, they probably had too many of them. And here it was, the last day, the last moment, and it was gone. And nobody cheered the Cardinals. There were no cheers for the Cards last night. And they remember when the very same thing happened to them 2 years ago, and even before, out there in St. Louis, you know, when the people were going ape and screaming. When the crowd is cheering for you, there's nothing like it. And then when they stop cheering for you, that's a totally different feeling. It's and to watch them cheer and to applaud the others, that's something. And these ball players, just that flat face, that expressionless look. And there was a moment when Tim McCarver, the catcher, he was right directly ahead of us, and you could see he was the only one that I could tell had any kind of an edge on. There was a little combative edge on him, and somebody backed into a ball and ticked him with a bat. I don't recall who it was. It might have been Harrelson or something. Somebody just ticked him with a bat, and he backed away. You could just see him. He spun around in an instant. You could see that glare out of the mask for just an instant. And then, you know, he very cool. He reached down and picked up some dirt and tossed it away and flipped the ball out to the pitcher. There were a couple of words there back. And then there was a kind of a funny moment when Bill White, the big, well, I guess he was playing the outfield last night. Huge ball player. He used to be the first baseman for the Cards. A big, impassive-looking guy. And White was out there kidding around with Grody. And he was at the plate. And Grody laughed, and White said something, and he glanced up over his shoulder. I don't know quite what he was saying, but it was about the crowd, because he glanced up over his shoulder, and I think he was referring to a sign. And I looked up there, and you could see some big sign that said something about Leo DeRocher. And White laughed, and you saw Grody spit, you know. He laughed. And these were real pros, you know, out there playing ball. But it was a wild, exciting, great, peculiar moment. One of those coalescing moments that I don't expect to see again, because from here on in, anything the Mets win will only be another win, and only another pennant or another divisional title. It's just like I hope Joe Namath is savoring this, because he'll never repeat it again. The first one is always the important one, and after that. I expect to see in a couple of years big signs out there, break up the Mets, you know, and oh sure, you see. One of the funniest things though was after the ball game when they were picking up guys. I went down into the clubhouse area. A couple of the ball players were walking around smoking big cigars. You don't often see ball players in the middle of training smoking big fat stogies and carrying bottles of champagne around, and you know, it was all there. But don't think, I personally don't think that the Mets ever were losers. Clowns, yes. Losers, no. Because a loser is never loved, not a true loser. And the Mets were always loved. Now, if you like to talk about losers, let's talk about the old Boston Braves. Let's talk about the St. Louis Browns. I mean, even their own fans would come out only to throw stuff at them. I mean, and they tried to hit them, just throwing stuff out there. So hang loose, friends. Think a clean thought or two, and I would suggest that you choke up on a bat. I think you're digging in a little too much. They're beginning to play you for a sucker.